Wallahi, I don't know what I know cucumbers, but concubines? Do you mean like slaves? Anyone who knows English better than I am, I'd appreciate if they can translate this word for me. Okay, female slaves, yes. It is not mentioned in the Sunnah, it's mentioned in the Quran. If you go through the verses in Surah An-Nisa and in Surah Al-Mu'minun in the very beginning, and in Surah Al-Ma'arij in the middle of it, Allah tells us that those who preserve and protect their private parts except from their wives and from their female slaves. Anyone who does anything else would be an aggressor. It would be a form of aggression. And this is Islamic. A person has the right to marry, a man has the right to marry 4 free women, not more. But he has the right to have as many slave females as he wishes. One would say, wow, this is great. Another one would say, this is barbaric. A third one would say, what about women's rights? Well, each one to answer and address would take probably a full lecture, but I'll be brief. First of all, you have to understand that slavery in Islam has only one source. Before Islam, slavery had gazillion sources. For example, you owe me money, you can't pay, I will enslave you. Which means that I can sell you, I can do whatever I want with you as any property or as any animal that I have. If you can't pay, give me your daughter. She's my slave now. If I have free time, me and my tribe, we would go to the neighboring tribe, we will kill their men, we will take their women and children, they will be our slaves. If I'm going with few of my friends traveling and we meet someone traveling on his own, we take him, we take what he has and he becomes a slave. We go and sell him in the slave market. Islam came, the questioner is asking as follow-up. So they have the right to have sex with their slaves. I'm coming to that. If you want the short answer, the answer is yes. If you're interested in a longer version, you may ask. Okay, thank you. Then I appreciate not interrupting. I don't know where I was. Okay, before Islam there were a number of sources of slavery. When Islam came, the only source of slavery permissible was through the prisoners of war. When Muslims fight the disbelievers and they refuse to embrace Islam, they fight them, they give them jihad, they make them jihad, and they have prisoners of wars. These prisoners of wars are all slaves. They are sold, they are bought, and they serve in the houses. The females of them can be the female slaves. Men who own them can have sex with them. Now, watch this. One would say, okay, isn't this barbaric? You have to look at the holistic picture. First of all, at the time, people would execute war prisoners of war, instead of keeping them in prison camps. They did not have any prison camps. So the only way possible was to execute them. Get rid of them and that is it. And this is well known through the Vikings, the War of the Vikings, the War of the Nations, and all the Crusades. This is what they used to do. In Islam, you do not kill a prisoner of war. You enslave him. Okay, what about if I enslave him? Then what? Well, look at this. In Islam, you find a number of expiations that always involve freeing a slave. So, if someone says, Wallahi, I will not do this, and then he changes his mind. What's the expiation? First of all, free a slave. If someone kills another person by mistake, not intentionally, he was driving and he ran over someone, he died. What should I do? You have to pay expiation. What's the expiation? First thing, you have to free a slave. Someone had intercourse with his wife during the day of Ramadan while fasting, free a slave. Someone says to his wife, you are like my mother, I will not touch you, free a slave. And it goes on and on and on. Everything Islam recommends and encourages you to free a slave. Second of all, this woman that he has sex with, he has the right to sell her afterwards. Maybe she stays with him for 4 or 5 years. She is a slave. She's not a free woman. She does not have the rights of a free wife. But it so happens that if she gets pregnant, then she cannot be sold. And this is what the scholars say, that her child freed her. She's not free. I cannot sell her. So I have one of the options, either to keep her as a slave in my possession or to free her and let her go. Otherwise she is she cannot be sold or bought, or she cannot be given, she cannot be inherited, because she is not a property anymore. Her child freed her in the sense. And so many of these prisoners of wars entered Islam. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said that the Prophet ﷺ said, I wonder and I'm astonished by people being dragged into, being pulled into paradise through their chains. Scholars interpreted this hadith by saying that these people who are being dragged and pulled into paradise in their chains refers to the slaves who, once they were prisoners of war and they were all in chains so that they would not run away, after they see Islam and the Muslims, they embrace Islam, they become Muslims, and these chains were the means and the reason that they entered paradise. So as if these chains were the things that made them be dragged and pulled to paradise. So to sum it up, this is for the benefit of the whole society, to have servants in the house, but only through Islamic war, proper Islamic war, which is jihad. So nowadays we don't have anything of this sort, and that is why the Muslims are weak, and that is why we don't have any slaves, whether female or male. And I hope this clarifies the issue a little bit.